for these huge cataclysms that have happened is Charles Hapgood, who came up with his Earth crustal displacement theory, where the weight of the polar ice caps gets so high that it actually causes the Earth's crust to actually displace like the peel of an orange over the lithosphere. What are your thoughts on that? Perhaps may have causing a lot of the destruction that we've seen in the past.
Well, I'm trying to remember his book. I read it many years ago. I can't say that he's wrong. I just don't. From the studies I've seen, I haven't seen that crustal displacement, because I think it's more of an electromagnetic thing, where the North Pole, that moves, but that the Earth's crust does not move. But there are a lot of people that would disagree with that.
Well, well, yeah, but I think maybe it could it be a combination of both, perhaps both events. Especially if, let's say, something astronomical is happening. Let's say, because as you know, just as the planet goes through seasons, so does our star, and I guess our entire solar system when going around the great year of 25,900 years around the center of the galaxy. So I guess the planet itself, the solar system goes through seasons, and those climatic changes, seasonal climatic changes, are traumatic on our planet. So there must be so on an interstellar scale also, which may also cause for these huge changes on our planet.
Oh, I agree. Because right now, in addition to our magnetic field shrinking here on Earth, is that the sun's protective bubble, because the sun has a protective shield of energy that surrounds our entire solar system, that protects not only the Earth but protects other planets from the radiation. And the sun's protective bubble has weakened by 25% just in the last 10 years. So absolutely, I agree there that it's not just us. I mean, it could be happening in the entire solar system.
Okay, thanks for the call, Kevin. Caller, you are live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Hi, it's John from Vancouver Island.
Hello, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, Robert.
Yes.
Yeah. I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're pulling a lot of dots, connecting a lot of dots. I just have some problems with what you're saying.
Okay.
And I'll start by saying, even with a reduced magnetic field, and even with cosmic radiation coming in, which would really shake up the genetics, causing a lot more random mutations. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So as far as speciation goes, you're still relying on the concept of random mutations, creating viable new species over a short period of time. So it's to me, you're still involved in the same problem. Like, just because you've got excess random mutations doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be intelligently coherent to create a new
You're
species.
right. I mean, absolutely, it doesn't mean that at all.
Right. Okay.
My guess is that these mutations, a lot of them will just end up in death because they'll be unworkable combinations.
Right. Well, okay. Here's one other thing. We assume that new species emerge out of existing species, and that may not be necessarily true, simply because the fossil record shows that you've got a sudden arrival of a new species without anything, really before it. There's no transitory species or anything like that.
Right.
So you might kind of wonder, like, were they inserted, or did they come from existing DNA? I mean, we don't really know.
No, I would have to agree. We don't really know. I've had, and I don't know where you're going with this, but I've had some religious leaders who really like what I'm saying because things do happen very quickly, and it's more akin to the biblical sense of creation. But then they're unhappy with me when I'm talking about mutation. But all I could say is that the radioactivity that we're talking about that could do it actually does show up in the geologic record in sync with the magnetic reversals.
All right, John, thanks for the call. Interesting concepts. What about the possibility that when we get this bath of radiation, that's sort of like disinfectant? Maybe what's happening is it's getting rid of stuff that needs to be gotten rid of. And it's maybe that's the function as opposed to creating new species.
I guess I can't really answer that either. I know that the Neanderthals somehow arrived on this planet about 115,000 years ago, according to the latest studies, and that's when the Blake magnetic reversal took place. And then the Neanderthals went extinct about 33,500 years ago, and that's, by coincidence, when the Lake Mungo magnetic reversal occurred. There's been new studies out lately. There's just been stuff on the internet in the last couple of weeks, and I've included a link to this on my website. But the Hobbit, and I don't know if you've heard about the Hobbit or talked about them, but back in 2003, scientists discovered miniature human-type people, the bones and tools for them, on the island of Flores in Indonesia. And these humans, or humanids, but they were only 1 meter tall, only about 3 foot 3 inches tall as adults, and weighed only about maximum about 65 pounds. Well, I found it interesting that they apparently showed up in the record about 880,000 years ago at a magnetic reversal. And then there's just a new study that just came out in this last week. They have now found more evidence of, they named them Hobbit after Tolkien's book.
Mm-hmm.
But more recently, just in this last year, they have discovered more stone tools from these hobbits under a layer of volcanic ash that's been dated to 1 million years ago, which just happens to be another magnetic reversal. So they just, I don't know, I keep seeing these, and now of course I'm looking for them, but I keep seeing magnetic reversals show up whenever there's an extinction, but also whenever there's a change in species.
I'm not sure there's a whole lot of, I'm not sure that I could enthusiastically embrace what I'm about to say as being a thread of hope. But there is a little flicker of hope in what you're saying, because you mentioned that there are some very old, ancient texts from Mexico that talk about what was going on during one of the magnetic reversals, and asphalt raining from the sky, so forth. Well, obviously somebody survived in order to write that down.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. Now, in the Mexican ones, it was the manuscript Quiche, I think is how it's pronounced, and also Histoire de Nation Civilisée du Mexico. And then there's also Syrian tales about oil raining from the sky. And the Midrashim texts talk about naphtha, or petroleum, falling from the sky. And it's interesting because in Arizona, in the San Pedro Valley, they have discovered layers of carbon that were deposited about 11,500 years ago. Now, This carbon, in some scientists have said, the Indians must have set forest fires, and this layer of carbon is from those forest fires. But in some areas, this carbon is more than a foot thick. And they discovered one mammoth in Arizona, in the San Pedro Valley. They nicknamed her Big Eloise. But this layer of carbon, there was a big lump in the carbon, and so they dug through this layer, this blanket of carbon, and there was this mammoth that they called Big Eloise. Below the layer of carbon, they found mammoth bones, they found mastodon bones, they found all sorts of Clovis Indian tools and equipment. Mm-hmm. Above that layer of carbon, nothing. No more mammoths, no more mastodons, no more Clovis artifacts. And it's interesting because I saw the same sort of thing with the dinosaur extinction from 65 million years ago.